obviously AEW WrestleDream is this weekend, and so we're going to give our thoughts on it. Currently, there are 10 matches on the card. We There may be an addition on Collision, we don't know, but for the sake of predictions at this current time, we're just going to call the 10 matches. So that's it. Let's get into it. To start off, the first match we're going to talk about is Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. Who have you got and why?
To be honest with this one, I personally think that the right call here is Swerve. We're trying to elevate someone here. Hangman, yes, he's not an absolute megastar, but he is an absolute superstar in AEW. And I think this is the time for him to do the job and help elevate a colleague. So I'm going with Swerve.
For everything you said, I 100% agree. I'm really high on Swerve Strickland. I think this guy has a lot about him that can really be a top level star in AEW.
I know it's a bit of an aside, and it's something that perhaps you and I might like to do at a future time on the channel. But one of my favorite showings of Swerve was before I knew he was called Swerve Strickland, when he was Killshot, and he made a reference to Killshot in the segment in his match against Dante Fox or AR Fox in Lucha Underground in their it was effectively like a three stages of hell match. It was absolutely brutal. But yeah, maybe one day we'll go through that on the show.
But potentially, that it's a very graphic match. I think it's fair to say, Thanasia.
Extremely, extremely.
So it's not for the light, for the weak of heart. The next match, FTR versus Aussie Open for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Thanasia, how do you see this one playing out?
Look, I did enjoy the promo segment that Australian Open had or Aussie Open had. But I can't see them defeating FTR. I feel like this is not the platform. They're not quite there yet, and FTR's too big. So I'm gonna have to go with the old Southern boys.
I we still can't separate each other because I'm 100% on board with your prediction as well. I think FTR will retain, and I think we got to wait until it feels like it's the right moment before they drop the titles. And it doesn't feel like this is potentially the right team, but just not the right moment. That's the way I feel about it. Okay, well, to continue the tag team predictions, we've got MJF versus The Righteous. And this is going to be effectively a 2-on-1 handicap match for the ROH World Tag Team Championships. Does MJF pull it off, Hanasu?
This one is actually really hard for me to predict because even when MJF and Adam Cole were together, there was a little bit of a question mark on if they were going to win. I think they still would win. It's just a question of now, can MJF win in a handicap situation? I'm sure we can find some kind of a screwy way for Adam Cole to get involved, like hit him with the crutches or something, because he did help out with in the match against Samoa Joe at AW Grand Slam. So I think based on that logic, I'm going to go with MJF, the big baby face, is going to prevail against the Righteous.
I'm torn on this one. I think the handicap element is what's really thrown a spanner in the works for my prediction. And for that alone, I am going to predict the Righteous to win. And I actually have enjoyed the limited amount I've seen of them. I think they have something about them. And for some, like, this is going to be such a niche reference, but their theme song reminds me a lot of a specific episode of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, when there's a cowboy villain in the show, and the theme that they've got, it always reminds me of that, but it's that like cowboy western element that they've got in the soundtrack. To me, at least, that's what it reminds me of. But I digress. The only way, the other thing I can see happening here is these followers that attacked Jay White potentially getting involved in this match to help MJF.
That is a very good shout.
Yeah, and it could be like a weird like cult of the devil type deal that's going on there. I don't know. So, but I'm still going to predict the Righteous. I think they could take it, and it might be a good way to get the titles off of what is essentially the main event scene of AEW and just give it its own focus. But this one I'm really torn. Like, I don't know exactly where it's going. But let's now go into the next match, and it's Chris Jericho and the Golden Elite versus the Don Callis family, which is Konosuke Takeshita, Sammy Guevara, and Will Ospreay. That's it. This one's pretty tough for me as well. I'm just gonna I'm gonna put my cards on the table, and I'm just gonna say for the simple fact of giving Takeshita a third win over Omega, technically, I'm gonna predict the Don Callis family here. Like but for you, like how do you see it? Because this one's quite tough for me to
Look,
predict.
I wish I could disagree, but it just feels like the right choice is to go with the heels here. Like all the momentum is with these guys. The momentum is with Will Ospreay. It is with Sammy Guevara. It is with Takeshita as well. And frankly, all three of the baby faces, they can cop the loss and just still keep going, right? Like there's no harm going. It would stunt though the development of the heels for them to lose. Therefore, right call is a heel victory.
And look, the thing is, the heels winning, like Jericho and Omega are made men. Kota Ibushi has such a rep. I think you are right. Like if we're talking about just keeping momentum going, the heels makes more sense. But we'll see how it goes. Speaking of made men, Christian Cage versus Darby Allin in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the AEW TNT Championship. Obviously, a guy like Christian Cage doesn't need to have a long reign to solidify his success and cement his legacy. But honestly, how do you see this going?
I want to throw out a weird one here. I'm going to throw out a very weird one here.
Okay.
I'm going to say one fall apiece.
Yeah.
Basically clean. It's going to be one fall apiece. But instead of Luchasaurus coming out to make the attack and support Christian to win, I'm going to say that we might have the AEW debut of one Adam Edge Copeland as a heel.
Oh. Oh.
And that must mean, in order to get the heat, that Christian Cage is going to emerge victorious, and it's gonna be like a three-way kind of co-champion thing where Luchasaurus and Christian and Adam Copeland, Edge, are all going to be the co-champions of the TNT title belt. What do you reckon?
Oh my God, I have so many thoughts on that. I look, I'm probably the one out there that is completely against the grain, but I really don't want to see Edge show up in AEW. I think I'm a football fan, and I'm a big sports fan, and particularly the reason I bring that up is I love it when people stick to a team, especially when they've been there for so long. I feel like it damages the legacy that you leave behind if you just have a short stint elsewhere. And in Edge's case, like he is a WWE guy. He's been there his entire career and he's gone through so much. And I would hate for him to to sort of just go to AEW for even like for a couple months just for the sake of being there. Obviously, it's his decision, and I'm sure it would still be entertaining to see him there. It's just from a personal preference, I wouldn't want him to show up in AEW. And not for that reason. I didn't even think of that, but I've got Darby Allin going over in this one. I love Christian Cage, but it kind of feels like Darby Allin's been doing this underdog heroic battle to try and get the TNT Championship again, and I think this is the moment that they're gonna give it to him. But God, Thanos, you've fucked up my brain now with that.
Spanner in the works, right? Look, I'm not saying it's actually going to happen. To be honest, I don't think it's going to happen. I think all these rumors are out of this world, but it'd be fun to think about, to be honest.
And I guess you're going off but what if?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, a bit more grounded to absolute reality. We know Eddie Kingston is going up against Katsuyori Shibata in a singles match for the ROH World Championship and the NJPW Strong Openweight Championship. Is this a successful pair of title defenses for Kingston within the one match?
Look, I think so. I am actually going to go with Eddie Kingston on this one. However, I'm thinking internally of the alternative. If he were to drop both titles in one go, it could set him on a bit of a downward spiral, and give his character a bit of a new direction there, because he kind of seems now that he's defeated Claudio, like he's at the peak of a mountain.
Yeah.
And if it's a sudden drop, that's a story in and of itself, as opposed to leaving him there until it gets stale. And it would be cool to see Shibata be like a a three belt man, right? That would be cool. But look, I think rationally speaking, it's not quite time yet for Eddie to lose the straps. So I am going to stick with him.
As am I. Very simple. Yeah, I think Kingston's going to defend successfully. We'll see how it plays out. Hopefully, it'll be a good match. The next match we've got to predict is Chris Statlander versus Julia Hart for the AEW TBS Championship. Julia Hart's got a big win streak here, Thanos.
Yeah, like 20 plus matches, 25 plus matches or something. And that honestly does make me a bit worrisome because you want to end winning streaks on a good platform. The thing is, a lot of like these are not. She's not been in high profile matches, right? This is across all of AEW programming, and it might be a chance to feed a big or a heel on a big run to Chris Statlander and make her even bigger. But to be quite honest, I think that is actually the way that I'm going to go. Doesn't mean that Julia Hart is going to get knocked down a peg. But I think Chris Statlander is a really credible mid-card champion, and I'm just going to back her.
You know what? Screw it. Julia Hart's going to win it.
Oh,
It's not where my head's at. It might not even be where my heart's at. But you know what? Sometimes you ride with the momentum, and I think it's hard to argue, not just in the sense of the win streak, but Julia Hart has completely revolutionized her own identity as a wrestler since joining the House of Black. I think she's become a very synonymous figure with the faction, and the pairing of her with Brody King, I think, is really working well.
if she does win it, there's a part of me that would like to see the all the belts situation where give her the TBS title, get either like the Ring of Honor or the AEW tag straps on Buddy and Brody King, and then get a singles title on Malachi Black. I would like to see that. And it'd be a cool parallel, right, with Judgment Day actually having the same thing, right? Because they've both kind of got that dark, kind of macabre gimmick.
Yeah,
So that would be kind of cool for me.
could be. Anyway, we'll see how that plays out. But let's now go into the next match, which is the Young Bucks versus the Guns versus the Lucha Brothers versus Orange Cassidy and Hook. So it's 3 brother tag teams versus Orange Cassidy and Hook in what is a 4-way tag team match for a future AEW World Tag Team Championship opportunity. This, obviously, with 4 different teams, it's really hard to predict how this one's going to play out. I don't know. How do you see it? Like, where do you see this going?
Perhaps this just kind of, shows you a bit about my personality, but I think about it with the process of elimination. And I think the Young Bucks recently won the 6-man World Tag, Ring of Honor World Tag Championships with Hangman. So I don't think they're quite due. And also Nick Jackson, for some reason, is the number 1 contender for the international title. So I'm removing them from the equation. Orange Cassidy, I would have actually thought that he and Hook might get it, but the thing is, because he won the Fatal 4-Way, I knocked them out of it as well. And I think it's the Lucha Brothers and the Guns, right? And I think there's a lot more flavor to be had because the Guns are heels and FTR are baby faces, to put them with each other. So by that logic, I'm actually going to go with the Guns on this one. I don't think it's going to be clean. I think it's going to be some kind of dirty fiasco shenanigans, but I'm going to go with the Guns.
And the thing is, I feel like story-wise, that one makes the most sense based on what we've got at our disposal. The only issue I have with it is that I would like to see FTR face different opponents, because this is obviously we're basing this on the idea they're going to face FTR and not Aussie Open. But yeah, so because they've already faced the Guns, I'm gonna predict the team of Ray Phoenix and Penta to win it. I'm not confident on this one, but they're a team I don't think they've faced in this reign, so that's why I'm giving it to them. But I think, with the exception of Orange Cassidy and Hook, FTR have faced these tag teams before, so it's not like there's a new opportunity with the other three. But yeah,
It's
so
a,
I'm going with the Lucha Brothers.
it's a good piece of logic that you've used because the AEW does try to avoid repeat matches. They try to just keep things fresh as much as possible. So it's a good thought process.
I think we've both had good thought processes, and it's just a matter of which direction they go. All right. The penultimate match we're going to talk about is Ricky Starks versus Wheeler Yuta. For me, this is very simple. Ricky Starks gets the win, surely, right?
Like what else could it possibly be, right? He's on a great run. Just give him the win. Don't do anything stupid, as Captain Jack Sparrow would say.
Yes. Yeah. Like I don't know. Like I feel like there's nothing else to add on it, but hopefully, absolute Ricky Starks does get that pay-per-view win in this case to sort of build on his momentum. And this now leads us into what I think is going to be the main event, and it's certainly the most anticipated match of this card, and that is Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. Thanasi, this has been a match years in the making for all wrestling fans, and I'm certain that it's been a match years in the making for Tony Khan. Firstly, the question I have is not even just who wins, but will this match live up to the hype?
See, that's actually a much better question than who will win, because frankly, anyone who asks the question who's going to win, and I know that we're posing it to each other here, but frankly, it's who cares, right? Like the fact that we're getting this match is big in and of itself. I don't actually care who the winner is. Will it live up to the expectations? I have to believe that it will. I believe this is the right platform. It was the first match announced on the card, which means I've had a long time to plan for it. And it's paying homage to a great technician. It's going to be technical wrestling in Antonio Inoki. So if it doesn't live up to it, it's going to be a massive disappointment. But I think both of the guys are going to show up. As for predicting a winner, frankly, it's a flip of a coin. Let's go with Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, the optimist in me is saying this match will live up to it. This is just one of those things where I've been long anticipating it. And essentially, for me, the hype has been built up because of what I've heard. I'm not a Zack Sabre Jr. specialist or avid fan. I've watched Bryan Danielson for many years in his work with AEW and then in WWE as Daniel Bryan. So I know how good and fantastic of a wrestler, actually not just good, phenomenal he is. So I have to believe that it's going to be great. And look, I'm going to give it to the American Dragon. I think he will win it, and it'll be a moment, and I reckon afterwards there'll be a shake of the hands, and they'll show some respect, and they'll move on from that. But I think that is as long as that lives up to it, I think everyone will be happy with the pay-per-view, to be honest.